What's up, everyone? We're back for some post-game Locked On Bucks. And Milwaukee snap a two-game losing streak. I think 2 is a streak. Maybe 3 is a streak. I'm not sure. But anyway, they're back on the winners list. Khris Middleton was back. Jrue Holiday was back. Boogie Cousins maybe played his best game as a Milwaukee Buck. So too Wes Matthews in this version of his time with the franchise as well. It was an emotional night for him. We'll touch on all of that, including Pat Connaughton. I thought WWE night was a couple nights ago, but WWE returned the Fiserv Forum tonight. We'll get into that and more. Let's get started.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Bucks. I'm your host, Kane Pittman. You can see and hear me on this show daily and also find my work over at ESPN. And joining me is the founder of brewhoop.com and longtime voice of the podcast. Live from Wisconsin, it's Frank Madden. And today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Check out prizepicks.com and use the promo code NBA or go to your app store and download the app today. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. And as always, we thank you for making Locked On Bucks your first listen of every single day. And I have appreciated over the last few days everyone listening and hitting us up on Twitter with different players, different random players, the Bucks that you would like to see the Bucks potentially pick up, given some of the veterans that are going around. Joe Johnson was getting buckets tonight for the Celtics, or at least he got a bucket. So it's strange times around the NBA. And Frank, I know you ended up giving away your tickets tonight. I want to come back to that at the end of the show. But this, for a random regular season game against the Houston Rockets with no Giannis, I found this game incredibly entertaining. And there were so many little things that happened in this game. I already mentioned in the intro, Boogie Cousins and Wes Matthews played well. Khris Middleton and Jrue Holiday were back. Is there anything in particular that you want to start with from this 126-106 win for the Bucks?
So, my broken record thing is, I always say whenever Giannis isn't playing that it just feels like these games are just referendums on three-point shooting. Felt like that way again tonight. Bucks 17 out of 46. Rockets hit 13 out of, I forgot what it was, but they were like 28, 29%. So obviously the three-point shooting was a big part of the story. And the Bucks taking care of the ball, 5 turnovers versus I think 15 for the Rockets. So that obviously was another big factor. But last time I was on the pod, I was basically sort of like saying like, yeah, I just don't really see it with Boogie in terms of, long-term playoff viability, all that. And I think I also took raised some, concerns, but just sort of reiterated, some of the Thanasis discussion. Hey, at least Boogie Cousins did a really nice job tonight, especially, people might remember, what did he play, like 4 minutes in the first Rockets game a couple weeks ago? Yeah. Alperen Sengun just put him in a blender that night. The youngster who's just a super impressive prospect. I think if you were to ask me who has the most sort of like out of young guys has like kind of like Jokic like potential, I don't think Sengun's going to be an MVP, but he's just such a talented young big guy. Not the most physically impressive guy, but super skilled, really good passer. And tonight, 10 points from him on 6 shots, but minus 23 and 4 turnovers from Alperen Sengun. And Boogie had 18 and 8 on 12 shots. And Christian Wood was still getting off a bit, pick and rolls. Boogie was not really much of a factor in that regard. But, offensively, he looked really comfortable, was making the extra pass and was not just like throwing fastballs at Sandro Mamukelashvili's head as he was doing in that Cavaliers game. Really nice game from Boogie. And I think, this is kind of why you sign him, right? To eat these innings, to give you, I don't think 28 minutes is a lot. I'm really curious to see, does he get out of bed tomorrow morning? Can he get out of bed tomorrow morning, with a back-to-back coming up? I'm very interested to see how they handle that, since they've been, kind of shielding him from back-to-backs. But he was really good tonight, even had a nice block. I was kind of waiting see if he was going to get posted. I think it was David Nwaba when drove baseline and he actually blocked him, and then Nwaba got him on the other end as well. But yeah, nice game from Boogie. And I think just, really nice balance, role players chipping in. I think Khris and Jrue having kind of a slow start. I was like, is this going to be a slog? It felt like it was going to be a slog early when they were down 21-15, but They really turned it on offensively, and 126 offensive rating tonight. Not that the Rockets are some great defense, but slow start. But Khris and Jrue very much came around, and obviously those are the guys that you really need to start with when Giannis is out, and then other guys, kind of, I'd say, sort of ate those innings, and we're definitely going to need to talk about Wes Matthews because out of the health and safety protocols and into his by far best game of the season. I looked it up. I think he had 3 games where he scored more than 16 points in his one season in Milwaukee previously. 16 points on 6 out of 7 tonight, 4 out of 5 threes. He had those 3 threes in short succession in the second quarter that really kind of, was a big part of the Bucks sort of getting some early separation. So very cool to see Wes Matthews, fitting in and seemingly showing no ill effects from his COVID bout.
So just quickly on Boogie, it was interesting. You mentioned the 28 minutes, which I think is very much on the upper end of the scale, but he only had 2 fouls. And if you remember at the start of this game, you already referenced the last time we played Houston, but he had that kind of absolutely pointless reach-in foul very early in this game. And I was thinking to myself, oh my goodness, those are the types of fouls that I think he has to be very careful of picking up. Those useless fouls that aren't really achieving anything, because the other thing that you've noticed with Boogie, he's such a huge man that he's pretty smart, actually. Sometimes his step might be a little bit slow to get to defensive positioning, but the IQ is still there. And because he's so big, he's not really going to get the benefit of the doubt on any of these calls. So he is going to pick up these fouls. So I thought when he picked up that first foul, it could have been a long night for him, but for him to bounce back, I thought was impressive. And we've seen him before. When he gets down low, he can sort of muscle his way in there and score or draw contact. It's going to be hard to stop him without fouling. So it was cool
and
to
no
see
turnovers. No turnovers from him
yeah.
too, which was obviously different from some of the other games. Yeah, the Rockets' lack of rim protection. Giannis was the obvious beneficiary of that the last time these teams played, but you could tell Boogie's mindset was, they just don't have anybody that's really scaring me trying to get to the rim, and he really, again, used that unique combination of skills and size that he has to get to the bucket for some and ones and just kind of muscling the ball around the basket, which was nice to see.
It was, yeah. I mean, you sort of pointed to it. It almost felt like the perfect Boogie game. Like if you're going to have Boogie Cousins come in and have this type of impact, we know he can still score. I looked it up because I was curious the other night when he was going to start, and I was wondering when was the last time Boogie had a really big night. I completely forgot. I guess he had 27 points and 18 rebounds for the Rockets early last season, so he can still fill it up if he has one of these nights and he can get to the free throw line a lot. And we haven't really seen him hit his threes. But if he knocked down a few threes as well, you could easily see him having the 20.9, particularly when the team is a little undermanned. As far as Wes Matthews goes, he just wrapped up his post-game media availability, and he was super emotional. The halftime interview, I think, kind of caught everyone off guard, including maybe Zora that was sort of conducting the interview. But his grandma passed away. Obviously, that's what Zora ended up reporting. There was an Instagram post on his social media that I'm sure some Bucks fans would have already seen. But clearly, this is affecting a lot of people around the world when you're in the quarantine and you can't get a chance to see these people and these situations happen. So fortunately, he did. But he was definitely fired up today. And I tweeted about it during the game. But just when you consider where the roster was at, we know they had that one roster spot, but then Yorgos was there as well. So tonight, it's just, again, reinforcement that you bring in Wes Matthews, you bring in Boogie Cousins, and it's kind of just like a flyer. Let's see what we can do. Can these guys stick for the postseason? But that's why having Yorgos on the roster and now replacing him for Wes Matthews and Boogie Cousins just makes perfect sense. You at least know that you have NBA players, and now it's about seeing what they can do. But if Wes turns out to be a playoff player, Frank, this is going to be a big bonus.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, right? It was interesting seeing Wes having that big game juxtaposed against Shemi Ojeleye coming back and returning, and playing tonight as well. Unfortunately, it was sort of a stock Shemi game as far as his first season has gone in Milwaukee. He did hit 1-3. There were a couple of plays where I think it was like on pick and rolls where you maybe one was going on a closeout, but he drove to the basket like he was going to really do something, like he was going to really attack the rim. And I think it's been a couple years since Shemi dunked in a game. And needless to say, he did not dunk in this game either. But I just, for some reason, the image I thought of when I saw him trying to drive down the lane and go up was that video of, remember when Steve Ballmer first bought the Clippers, and he he came out and he did the thing where he jumped off a trampoline and like barely
Oh
dunked.
my God.
And that was like my thought was like, oh man, maybe we need to get the trampoline out for Shemi so he can get up over the rim. Sorry, Shemi, you seem like a lovely guy, but yeah, the offensive end is continues to be a struggle for Shemi. It's still funny. He was like a scorer in college. I mean, I think he averaged like 17 or 18 a game in his last year at SMU. You know, he was at Duke previously. Obviously, this is a guy at some point was able to get buckets at a high level at the college, at least the collegiate level. But it's just man, it's a struggle in the NBA, and you can tell the refs have no like they're not going to give him the benefit of the doubt when there's contact or anything like that. So interesting. I don't want to say like Shemi and Wes are just complete like for likes because Shemi is a couple inches taller. He definitely weighs more. He's stronger. He's more used to defending fours than Wes is. Wes, I think, is still more of like a wing defender, right? But I think that's going to be one of the interesting things to watch here. Is if I'm Wes Matthews and I'm looking at like the rotation, right, and the guys that are playing, not playing. I mean, let's do the quick math on the healthy Bucks rotation, right? Let's put aside Brook Lopez because obviously we don't know where Brook is, but you look at the backcourt rotation. Obviously, you've got let's assume Grayson Allen, who sounds like he has still been battling some illness. That's why there were some questions why he didn't play tonight. Sounds like he's going to play tomorrow per Bud in the post game, so that's good. But let's assume Grayson, Jrue are the starters. George Hill, obviously I think you feel we saw DJ Augustin hitting some shots, but I think we feel pretty good about George Hill as the backup point guard relative to what we saw throughout the course of last season through the kind of ups and downs of the Bucks backup point guard situation. And then we have Dante DiVincenzo, who, knock on wood, hopefully we may see as soon as Orlando. So you got a couple guys there. Obviously, Pat Connaughton, we don't need to talk about Pat. He's been awesome this year. That gives you, three guys right there. And, there's obviously been a lot of discussion around, who's kind of like that, like third, fourth big, right? Well, Bobby Portis, is presumably going to start here until further notice with Brook out once he comes back. So then, Boogie's kind of like the backup, the third big at this point. Mamu's really the only other guy that's really available. But other than that, I mean, as far as like, there's at least one more kind of wing spot available, and we've seen Rodney Hood get pretty regular minutes of late, and now we see, Rodney played 22 minutes tonight. He's been solid lately. He obviously started really slowly, but he's been playing better, I would say. And then obviously Wes has now played well. So I think it's interesting. I think there is potentially, if it depends if Bud is going 9 or 10 guys, especially during the regular season. But it's a really interesting situation here because you've got Shemi, you've got Rodney Hood, you've got Wes Matthews, and now Jordan Nwora is starting for now. And he continues to be inefficient, but he's at least getting filling up the box score a bit. 18 points, 9 rebounds tonight. Some real highlight plays over the past week, including that terrific step back tonight. But just a really interesting dynamic, I think, it feels like there's ultimately going to be like 2 spots probably, and there's like these 4 guys kind of all sort of battling between Wes, Rodney, Shemi, and Jordan Nwora. And I just think, again, over the course of the regular season, you're going to need all those guys because we always have injuries, we have COVID, all this stuff. But it's interesting right now because they're all getting opportunities. And at some point, we hope that they get healthy enough, Dante coming back, Giannis, et cetera. But it's good to see some of these guys, especially obviously Nwora and Wes Matthews stepping up here a bit, and even Rodney Hood playing better because there's absolutely minutes for the taking there. And Shemi Ojale is kind of the one guy there that you'd think of as being like more of a mini 4-man. But he obviously has probably been the least impressive, especially when you look at like just his real struggles offensively.
Yeah, considering there was no Giannis tonight, no Brook Lopez, no Dante DiVincenzo, which I think if in an absolute perfect world, there's 3 of your projected starters, it still did feel like the Bucks were able to put out pretty competitive lineups tonight. But I tell you what, that would make things interesting if you're a fan of the bench players and you're trying to pick which player could really come in and contribute. You might be into Prize Picks, which is the best NBA DFS prop game on the market. It offers more NBA props than any other DFS prop operator and offers all the superstar players as well as the bench players like Wes Matthews, like Jordan Nwora and Boogie Cousins in a perfect world. and it has all the props, whether it's points, assists, rebounds, threes made, and so on. So you can pick 2 to 5 players and an over and under on their projections, and you can win up to 10 times on any entry, and it's just you versus the projected numbers. Prize Picks also allows mixed sport entries, so you could take the over on Aaron Rodgers' yards, and you could take the over on Thanasis fouls, perhaps, after tonight. So go to Prize Picks tonight, go to prizepicks.com tonight, or go to your app store and download the app. All users that deposit and use the promo code NBA will get $50 free if your first Prize Picks entry scores a single point. That's right. All users that deposit and use their promo code NBA will get $50 for free if your first Prize Picks entry scores a single point. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. And if you had $50 in your Prize Picks account, that would give you a solid boost. And of course, we know our friends over at Boost. You listen to the podcast for the power of knowledge, but if you switch to Boost Mobile, you'll have the power of saving money. Because with Boost, you get the power of a free 5G phone, so you can listen to all the latest episodes, the power of 3 unlimited data lines for $30 a month per line, so your family can harness all that brain power too, all the brain power that you get from listening to Locked On Bucks, and the power of one of America's largest 5G networks, so you can do it all at the speed of 5G. Switch to Boost Mobile and find out. Get a free Samsung Galaxy A32 5G when you switch to one of America's largest 5G networks. More power to save. Boost Mobile. Free phone limited to new customers and 1 per line. Additional restrictions apply. Offers and coverage not available everywhere or for all phones or networks. See boostmobile.com for details. All right, I got some trivia for you, Frank. I know you love trivia. You mentioned Thanasis. Tough night for him tonight. He fouled out after playing only 9 minutes of action. So he becomes the 7th player in Bucks history to foul out or to pick up 6 fouls in under 10 minutes of court time. So my question for you, who was the last Milwaukee Buck player to foul out in under 10 minutes? Now, it's a big man. It happened in the 2000s, and he was a pretty prominent feature of the rotation for a while there on some stinky Bucks team.
My first thought was maybe Dan Gadzuric.
Oh, that's exactly right, Danny G. By the way,
your hint. By the way, your hint is what led me to that. The prominent on some bad Bucks team. That was like, okay, well, it wasn't like, my first thought was like maybe it was Thanasis did it last time as well. Yeah. But yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, he was very foul prone, and he was a starter for a couple of years there. But right before Andrew Bogut showed up, and then they paid him anyway, and he stuck around for a few more years.
One of the great YouTube clips, the Bucks playing in their famous red jerseys at Staples Center. Oof. Dan Gadzuric and Francisco Alson running the fast break. One of the funnier clips on YouTube. If you're a fan of the Bucks, I'm sure you can go check that out if you haven't already.
It turns out having 2 Dutch 7-footers is not the best recipe for an NBA fast break. Who knew?
I don't even know who was coaching that. It would have been Skiles, probably. Skiles, just get the rebound and go. We're playing fast tempo offense. Let's go, boys. Let's push it up the floor. The other man we need to speak about, Pat Connaughton tonight. He was 3 for 12 from 3. I'm not sure where the 12 3-point attempts lands in terms of his career high or his Bucks career high, but he was certainly letting it fly. And no wonder he wasn't able to see straight, because he nearly got his head knocked off. And we need to start protecting Pat Connaughton. This man gets hit in the head too much.
Can you show this to the YouTube viewer? Oh.
I can show the live footage of Pat Connaughton. He's got an eye patch. He's missing the front tooth. He's wearing a helmet. He might need to start playing like this, honestly, I swear, because it is starting to get out of control. And you hadn't seen this incident, and I wish I had recorded your live reaction as I watched you watch this. It's absolutely insane.
And for those listening, rather than being able to watch on YouTube, Kane has just done a terrific Photoshop of Pat's headshot here, to put an eye patch and
I might just leave it
missing
there.
a tooth, and he's our third man in the booth tonight. And I'm most impressed with how you've gotten this to overlay onto the screen without blocking out the whole screen. So anyway, go to Kane's Twitter feed if you want to see this masterpiece for yourself if you're not watching on YouTube. But yeah, Kane, you posted the actual video of Garrison Matthews, who, by the way, Garrison Matthews just does everything violently. I guess he's a former football player. I heard that mentioned on one of the previous broadcasts. The way he shoots is just like very like violent and just kind of like all over the place. And the way he defends and closes out is very violent. I think he may have had like a play last year when he was on the Wizards where I think it was against like Facundo Campazzo where he just like mauled him on a closeout. I want to go look this up, but anyway, yeah, like the video, no call, and literally he like kicks his leg out after he flies by him and literally backheels Pat clean in the face. I, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, if I'm Budenholzer, I'm like screaming for them to at least like look at this as a violent act. Like, I mean, obviously it was just an out of control play. I don't know that it would have been like if he would have gotten a technical. He should have gotten a technical on pure just like control your goddamn body grounds. Like, I don't know if people play hockey, but like in hockey, there's the like, you're responsible for your stick if you do a high stick or something like that. Like in basketball, you should be responsible for the bottom of your shoe. And if your bottom of your shoe like kicks a dude square in the jaw, like as he's making a pass, call a goddamn foul. Do something. Like that was just outrageous that there was no call on that. And yeah, I mean, and then I didn't see the elbow. Was the elbow just a stock Pat Connaughton takes an elbow type play?
Yeah, he was trying to sort of defend from behind, and I can't remember. It might have been Augustine, I think, or Eric Gordon, I think it was. And he kind of just like it was just like a back arm and just got him in the face again. And Pat, as we've got very used to, was just shaking his head in disgust at how many times can he possibly get hit in the head. I think he's got a bit of a shiner coming through, which is no surprise. I mean, this wasn't just a glancing blow. This was a back heel straight to the face, X-Pac, D-Generation X style. WWE, as I mentioned right off the top. This was pretty brutal. You mentioned Jordan Nwora as well, and I do have a question for you about Jordan Nwora. After I mentioned our friends over at Truebill, which is the new app that helps you identify and stop paying for subscriptions you don't need, want, or simply forgot about. On average, people save up to $720 per year with Truebill. Because companies make subscriptions hard to cancel, Truebill makes it incredibly simple. Just link your accounts and Truebill will cancel your unwanted subscriptions in one tap. Don't fall for subscription scams. I always mess that up. Start canceling today at truebill.com/lockedonnba. Go right now, truebill.com/lockedonnba, and it could save you thousands a year. That's truebill.com/lockedonnba. I saw a little bit of conversation, and you mentioned the step back. I think he downplayed it a little bit, by the way. Poor old, who was it? Armani Brooks. It just got sent into the ether on this step back from Jordan Nwora. And by the way, I always find that there must be so much pressure on these players when you're staring down at a guy who's looking up at you from the floor after he's just gone tumbling to the deck, and there's all this pressure on you to knock down the three. Shout out to Nwora for hitting nothing but net on that triple, because that really just tops off the play. But I saw some people questioning on Twitter whether they liked the fact that he completely mocked Brooks twice in the span of 30 seconds. Do you care about this at all? I mean, it was very funny. I'll say that.
I thought the first one where he kind of like mock stumbled as he was going back down court was funny. Doing it like right, because Brooks, he did the second time he did it was like as they were going to like, because literally they had to like Steven Silas had to call a timeout because it was like too embarrassing basically, and the crowd was like too into it, and he was like, all right, let's call timeout. And the fact that he then did it not really at him but just like right next to him, I thought it was just like Jordan, like I don't know if you're good enough to be doing that. And I think he got I mean Christian Wood just annihilated Jordan on an and one dunk out of a pick and roll a little bit later. And the Bucks were up by a fair bit then, and Wood kind of let out a yell, but not really like at Jordan Nwora. But it's kind of like, I don't know. You could argue both ways, right? You can argue like, hey, when you get one of those plays, you got to celebrate it and rub it in because you never know when you're going to be on the business end of it coming the other way. But yeah, doing the double celebration, I feel like double celebration, it's like, Jordan, like you're not that good. Like, maybe just hold it in a little bit. But whatever. I mean, it was a fun play. I mean, I think that had to be the highlight of the game, right? That play. And I think this was a weird game for Jordan Nwora. I mean, perfect summation of Jordan Nwora. He scores 18 points. Whoa, 18 points. And he takes 18 shots. So, and it felt like his misses were all just like horrendous misses as well. Either like forced shots that were like, air balls, or he like missed a couple of just like point blank shots. He got blocked a couple times. It felt like just, absolute like maximum amplitude Jordan Nwora, high highs, low lows. And I don't know. Again, I think it's encouraging. Obviously, he's at least mixing in, like, he's out there getting buckets, creating shots. At times making some solid passes, solid reads. But yeah, I mean, it's still, I'd say, a little bit of a roller coaster. But compared to where he was, 2-3 weeks ago, where it was just, he was literally just in the doghouse, not even playing, and on the few occasions he did play, it felt like, just he had no rhythm. Obviously, he's in a much better place now. But let's not act like Jordan Nwora has made some undeniable claim for rotation minutes, regardless of when the Bucks get healthy or not. As I said, I think it's going to be an interesting kind of battle for minutes among those guys that I mentioned. As over the course of the rest of the season, and again, like you got it. It's a marathon, and Jordan Nwora, like, I think a lot of people are probably ready to bury him for good a couple weeks ago. Kudos to him. He's kind of stuck with it and taken this opportunity reasonably well. But yeah, I mean, we know how Bud is, and we know with all these injuries, he'll keep giving guys chances, and unfortunately, he hasn't had much choice.
You already mentioned it at the start of the podcast. I was just looking at the box score when you said that 18 shots, because I was like, wait a second, did he shots tonight on the team? And he did. But there was a pretty good spread tonight. So Jrue and Khris took 17 shots. Boogie and Pat had 13. But it is kind of funny. I know there's no Giannis tonight, but this was part of the problem that when we spent so much time and Bud was really focusing on what else he can do on the floor, it's also like, well, the beauty of Jordan Nwora, or the real NBA skill he has, is that he can score. So you kind of, if he's out there and not shooting at the same time, then it's just kind of like, well, what is actually happening? And that's why I do think when everyone comes back and Dante is going to be playing some of those sort of guard/wing minutes, and Grayson Allen, and maybe Rodney Hood is the guy. Maybe there's like some end of the rotation minutes, and it's either Hood or Jordan Nwora. And as you sort of point to, I thought Hood, at least in the last week or so here, has looked like he's had some decent contributions. The only other really thing, unless you have anything else you want to discuss really about this game, Frank, is there anything else you need to throw out there?
I think just on that, Hood has not had a good year. I think he came in this game shooting 36% overall, 30% from three. So, but Bud has, he was playing. Bud was playing Hood over Nwora, really throughout the season, right? I mean, obviously Nwora had those moments early in the season, but since Hood came back from some of those early injuries, Bud's been pretty patient with him, and so it's an interesting kind of duel there. And Hood has obviously not played at a high level. He's had some more moments of late. I think in general, though, I think with Hood, I mean, Hood's not like known as some good defender or anything like that, but I think he's just, you don't notice him for better or worse as much. And in the NBA, especially with a coach like Bud, I mean, we've seen it even the past week or two when Nwora is playing better, that, I mean, he's bench Nwora for some questionable decision making or not getting back on defense, things like that. I think that's obviously just something that Hood is he's a vet. He knows better than to do the things that are clearly going to inspire your coach's ire. So I let's just say it's very possible that I can foresee some frustration as guys come back in rotation if Rodney Hood continues to eat up some of those final rotation spot minutes, and if Nwora again is a guy that shifts back into collecting more DNPs, that we may see that. But we're not out of the woods yet, right? I mean, we still have 3 guys in protocols. You've got a game tomorrow night. And who knows, right? I think it was good to see Khris Middleton only play 28 minutes tonight and Jrue only play 31 minutes. But I don't know. I am curious to see Did he? I think he said that. I think Bud said that he expects Khris to play on the back-to-back, so that's a good sign, especially with the Mavs missing Luka and a whole bunch of other guys. Like this is a very winnable game even without Giannis. But yeah, just kind of interesting. I mean, I don't know how confident I am in the Bucks' depth, sort of in a playoff sense at this point. Especially their deep depth. I think there are minutes to be won among some of these guys on the wing in particular, but any win without Giannis is a good win to me. They should have won this game just based on the opponent and the fact that it's a home game. But I think right now it's just like seemingly most teams in the NBA. Like you're literally just trying to sort of survive, keep your head above water, not drop a bunch of games while you're injured, and certainly win tonight, have a chance to win another one tomorrow, and then obviously you've got a Christmas game against the Celtics in a couple days that obviously is going to be home as well, and the Celtics have already beaten you twice.
Looking forward to Christmas Day when you've got Khris Middleton and Joe Johnson just backing each other down, working to the mid-range and getting buckets. It's going to be awesome to see baby Joe Johnson.
Joe Johnson was like my favorite Khris Middleton comp when Khris was like first kind of like really established, like pre-All-Star Khris. He was one of my favorite comps for Khris, Joe Johnson, just because of sort of how smooth he used that size, could handle it, pass, not spectacular. And hey, look at there he is, Joe Johnson, still in the NBA through the COVID hardship exception that obviously none of us wanted this to be a thing, but that's just the way it is right now.
It sucks it's the Celtics, but I do hope he sticks in the league because it's fun. It was fun to see him out there. He got a nice ovation and got that one bucket as well. Make sure you check out the Locked On Bets podcast with your boy Q and handicapping expert Lee Sterling. If you're into that thing, those guys have you covered each and every day, and they'll help you out with perhaps some tips, some ideas of what you want to be keeping an eye on in the sporting world. Before we wrap this up, Frank, you were going to this game. You decided not to go to this game. Obviously, you're with family. Obviously, it's a weird time to be in a packed arena, and some people may prefer to steer clear of that right now, a couple of days before Christmas. Certainly makes sense to me. So you gave away these tickets. Very generous. And by the way, some very nice seats you had here, Frank. So I don't know if you have the Twitter handle. I don't have it in front of me, but a very generous decision by Santa Madden to give these tickets away. As again, it's a real YouTube special show. You got to watch this one on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe. All sorts of great clip art work by me today. I was really in my element.
Yeah, I mean, I've just taken an absolute bath on Bucks tickets, both tickets that I've bought and kept, as well as tickets that I've bought and sold over the past 6 months or so. I mean, the Game 6 of the NBA Finals is still the last Bucks game that I've attended, so hey, it worked out. I'm not really complaining in the grand scheme of the universe. I think I paid $800 per ticket, and then they went up a lot. I bought them after Game 4. So I could have paid even more, but I paid and that was quote unquote face value, right? Because the Bucks now do kind of this demand-based pricing. So yeah, I paid more money to see that game and sat in the worst tickets of my life. But who cares? We were in the building for Game 6. I have no complaints. But then I bought tickets to opening night of the season because I had hoped to be able to come back for ring night, and then just schedules, travel, it just wasn't going to be workable. And so I then like posted those for sale. I posted those under face value for ring night, and nobody wanted to buy them. So I ended up giving them away to some friends. So that was not a great financial decision.
By the way.
And then yeah, my dad messaged me a couple months ago, and our neighbor who kind of took over my parents' season tickets a couple of years ago, they were going to be out of town here this week, and so they were like, "Oh, do you want this game and a Christmas game? Let me know." And so yeah, I mean, these are pretty good seats. I think they're section 104, row 5. They're not our old. We used to have awesome seats. These are a little bit angled in the lower bowl, but I mean it's row 5, so you're very close. And so we paid $400 for 2 tickets to like just face value to our neighbor, and then yeah, I mean, just in the last 24 hours, my wife and I were just like, like, do you want to go down in the cold in front of all these, with all these people, given just the way our public health situation is right now? We have an almost 4-year-old getting COVID when you're in a household full of your family members over the holidays. / when you have a child that you need to put into daycare. It's not good, Kane. Not good. Like maybe if you're single, and it's like, oh, I get COVID, I just stay home from work and hopefully I don't get too sick. Yeah, your whole life is just like completely upended if you have this in a family. So we're just like, I don't know how I don't, and again, I'm not saying it's like that these games are super spreader events. I have no idea. I hope everybody's safe and people aren't getting sick. But we were just like, you know what? No Giannis. It's cold. We can stay home with family. Maybe we'll just skip this one. And so I posted it early in the day to like just see if there was any kind of real sale. But I mean, ticket prices are crap right now because these games, like nobody wants to go see the Bucks when they're missing Giannis and a bunch of other dudes. So yeah, fortunately my mom before the season was like, let's not have anybody going to Christmas Day games because I want people home for that day. So that worked out very well because the only thing worse than being stuck with these tickets would have been having stuck with both of the games tickets and having to get rid of the Christmas Day games too. So yeah, I mean, my dad was a season ticket holder for 25 years. He is very happy to no longer be sitting on tickets for every game that's, he's paying hundreds and hundreds of dollars for. I mean, that's just unfortunately the reality of the NBA and season tickets at this point. Hey, I'm glad that the Bucks are really good and they're NBA champions, and that means that tickets are getting a lot more expensive. But I don't envy people who bought a bunch of tickets, bought season tickets, and they're having to like try to get rid of them on the secondary market because, I mean, understandably, it's between COVID stuff and probably more importantly, just guys being out and all that. It's a tough scene right now. But anyway, hopefully people who did go to the game had a good time, and obviously they got to see a Bucks win. Bill Cruiser and Ricky Santos, I think, are the two dudes that ended up with the tickets. So shout out to them. They tweeted a picture. Hopefully they had a good night. At least they got to see a Bucks win. And by the way, if not for the fact when I went to the finals, like I think there's still a mask requirement at Fiserv, but just like it's just blatantly ignored by like everyone and nobody really does anything about it. So if I thought that like people were going to do that, I probably would have been like a little bit more open to going. But I was just like, it's probably fine. But I enjoy watching the game with Lisa and Marcus, and from the comfort of my home, that's also fine. So got to spend a little bit more time with my family.
We got to podcast pretty soon after the game as well.
Yeah,
so
we got to exactly. You were just waiting for me to say that like I did it so that I could more easily podcast and see you earlier, right? That's what you were fishing for that. Is that right? I'm probably right.
Well, we have new protocols now. If you go to a Bucks game live and they win, you're only allowed a podcast crying from the streets of Milwaukee. And I didn't think you were going to do that tonight after a win against the Rockets. So
it's too cold. The tears would freeze. It's just not good. Yeah, I'd have to find that parking lot again. One day, Kane, you're going to come back to Milwaukee, and I'll be in Milwaukee. Maybe during next year's finals. Let's be optimists. And I'll take you to the parking lot and show you where we recorded our Game 6 post game podcast. And I will never forget where I was when we had that podcast. That was the worst audio quality podcast of probably my career. But circumstances.
And nobody gave a shit about the audio quality for that podcast, which is the absolute best part about it. I would like to be back for the NBA Finals. So the Bucks I guess it's up to you guys. You got to hold up your end of the bargain. We'll leave it there for today's podcast, though. As Frank mentioned, they are in Dallas tomorrow, so 12:30 Australian Eastern Daylight Time. I don't know why I was saying Australian time. 7:30 Central. For you maniacs over there in Milwaukee, the revenge game potentially for Jason Kidd. So we'll see how this pans out. As Frank mentioned, there's a bunch of guys that aren't playing, but we'll be back after the game. So for myself, for Frank, for Pat Connaughton, we'll speak to you guys after the game.